Welcome to the T-Row Show. Transmitting truth one week at a time.
Welcome to the T-Row Show. This is your host, Keith. They got Stu and Tony. Say hello, guys.
Good afternoon.
Hello, everyone.
All right, we're on the T-Row Show is on a crusade, or I'm just kidding. We're covering Creatures of the State that was published by the Reign of the Heavens Society Post, and there's a lot of information in there that people never read. I mean, it just unbelievable. They never went over it or never saw it. But at any rate, it's got some interesting stuff in 3 and 4 that we're going to cover. And I wanted to cover one other thing. It's called nationalism, and populism, okay? That's been turned into a crime, which is in clear violation of Article 15 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which means John McCain came out the other day and said, what's the first thing Hitler did was discredit the media. Y'all remember that? He said this just a couple of days ago. He came up with a statement, and which was funny, I thought, because the media that's being discredited is the corporate media, not the real media.
Correct.
So they got a little twist and turn here. So the communists came in and started taking over and around the 30s in America, and they have twisted things up so bad it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and if you try to discredit the corporate media, then McCain would complain because they're covering him.
Right. All his skeletons in the closet are hidden.
Correct.
So what we're trying to do, folks, is bring the real media into the back to the country, where people are reporting real news. And I've seen this firsthand. This was back in the early 90s. I happened to be at a store where the media showed up, and this was back in 91, 92, or it could have been a little earlier. And I'm sitting here listening to him report what's going on, and I just looked at him, and it didn't hit me at the time. You know, I was really young. It didn't hit me at the time. I said, that's not what's going on here. They just made that up. It was they took a situation that was going on at a store and completely twisted it into something else that they wanted to cover. It just appeared as if that was what was going on. The picture looked around the same. And that's the kind of media that the Americanism, America First folks, and, I believe the Republicans are trying to get a hold of or get rid of.
Yeah, and there's, not to interrupt you, but there's, for folks that are having a little intellectual transition problem with this, there's plenty on YouTube examples where you can see falsified locations, cameramen that serve as interviewees, and things of that nature. And it becomes pretty easy to see that there's games being played with many of the stories that you're exposed to on your typical ABC, CBS, CNN type of news outlets.
It's incredible watching a lot of this, but yet they have turned nationalism, you being proud of your country, into a crime in violation of Article 15 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We're going to show you how they did that. That's what we're doing when we're talking about the national security breach by creatures of the state in this series. We're showing you, yes, absolutely correct, the communists took over. And yes, the communists are in contract with Islam. Yes, they are working together. And we're showing you in the Creatures of the State how they did it. See, people can say these things all they want. You have to be able to prove it. And these series prove this step by step on what happened, how they did it, you know, the whole deal. So this is I'm just going to go ahead and read it to you, and then we can go ahead and stop whenever we need to. If anybody else on the program here, we've got a couple of guests. If you guys want to jump in, feel free to jump in and make a point if we're not making that point. So this is this is part 3 of a series revealing the national security breach that resides under the nose of many people that have a suspicion of a problem yet have not quite seen the big picture. In the past 2 articles, the term privileged class of people is obviously referring to members of the Bar Association. The Bar Association have a sordid history. This is their history, guys. The most recent history involves the very sore subject for most, however, is a part of this series. It involves the start of World War II. How many times has Trump been associated with Hitler?
I know of a few times.
Obviously, that weapon was put there, right?
Mm-hmm.
That weapon to be able to knock anybody out that said, we need to take care of our own country first. And the globalists are just going to have to sit back until we take care of ourselves. That weapon was put in place. How did they do that? Believe it or not, WW2 was started by the Bar Association under a different name. It was called the German Bar Association. The German Bar Association was among the numerous ideologically aligned organizations and associations that in 1933 adopted rules explicitly excluding Jews from their ranks. And there's a link there. You can go take a look. It made all of the laws of Nazi Germany. For example, new restriction on German lawyers. September 17th, 1935. Berlin, September 7th, which was new restriction on German lawyers. Okay, Berlin, September 16th. No German lawyer will hereafter be permitted to advise his clients in matters concerning Jews unless he first secures permission from his Nazi district leader. It was announced here today. So exclusion is the first part. Now, the president of the Federal Chamber of Jurists today circularized, believe it or not, that's an actual word, all lawyers to this effect. Please keep in mind that the restrictions imposed on German lawyers were self-imposed because the German bar members were making all of the laws of the new national government at the time. See, they wanted a global government, and a global government requires that you don't have a national government. It requires that you have a corporation, where a global government would outrank the corporation, and or the corporation will be registered in the jurisdiction of the global government to do business. Therefore, the global government could make the laws, and the corporations would have to abide by them. So you have to broaden your scope on the world and help you understand what's really going on in a larger point of view. Please keep in mind that the restrictions imposed on German lawyers, I'm rereading something. In 1933, immediately after seizing power, the BNSDJ, that's the Bund National Sozialistischer Deutscher Juristen, I have no idea how to say that. Okay. Association of National Socialist German Lawyers was founded. In 1936, this organization was converted to the notorious Nazi Association of Law Protectors. Law Protector was a Nazi code language for systematically destroying the democratic legal system and replacing it with Nazi fascist dictatorial law. So just like what was said on this week, you know, that the Trump organization or his administration was a fascist, we got to get rid of the fascists and all that. When they're blaming you for something, it's what they're doing. Keep that in mind. So when they start calling you fascist, it's because that's what they are. And that's called self-projection.
Yeah.
It's an actual we call it psychological term, and psychology is self-projection.
Yep, they do that a lot.
Okay, so associations. Associations are inherently privately owned organizations. State governments do not regulate those associations because they are protected by specific human rights. That paragraph should shock the conscience because almost every politician in state governments are lawyers and members of the American Bar Association. There's a link there that we have in the newspaper to back up everything we're talking about. And yeah, there it is. Okay. It goes into the Bar Association and all the members and memberships and everything else, and you can take a look at it anytime you want. If the Constitution of the United States of America has all but been obliterated, who does anyone think is responsible for that obliteration? The most common sense answer would be the unregulated bar associations. Please notice that the word association is used in the plural sense. This is because there are at least 3 different bar associations in existence in this country and maybe more. You have the Jewish American Bar Association, which I honestly think, I don't think those guys, and I'm not pro or against Israelis, but I don't think they have a lot to do with what's going on here. Mainly because whenever it comes to Islam, they get the crap into the stick every single time. I really don't think that they have much to do with this. However, I'm sure there will be plenty of people that say, oh, no, I got plenty of proof. Don't worry about it. I'm looking at this from a larger point of view. Muslim American Bar Association and the American Bar Association. Please note that these associations practice racial segregation. They also practice in 3 different forms of law. Why is it okay for bar associations to practice racial segregation, and yet if someone mentions racial segregation that is not a part of the bar association, they are racist and trash? It is because the lawyers have raised themselves to a privileged class of people. Now, what we're talking about, what I'm saying here is you're going, well, where's your proof for racial segregation? Okay, let's go back to 1, 2, and 3. Jewish American Bar Association. That's 1. Muslim American Bar Association. That's 2. American Bar Association. That's 3. 3 different types of racism or races, all separating themselves. Why aren't they all just one bar association? Why do they have to separate themselves? That's the whole thing. Which organization created the Nazi Party? That would be the Bar Association again. How many people died in World War II? Millions. And which Bar Association is responsible for all those lives? The national security breach has been defined as having a very large private membership association that has completely taken over all of the lives of the people, including their money. The private membership association is completely unregulated and is capable of destroying the Constitution of the United States of America privately while publicly claiming to uphold it under the claim of the rule of law. Rule of law, folks, has nothing to do with the Constitution or the Articles of Confederation or anything. Rule of law has to do with the Vatican law. What's that called again, Stu? Tony?
Would that be ecclesiastical law?
It's ecclesiastical, but they have a term for it. Does anybody remember? For some reason, it just got my mind went blank.
Canon?
Canon, thank you.
Canon, there you go.
There you go. Okay. Canon law is the rule of law. They're both vetted with each other. So whenever you have somebody saying we need the rule of law, that's canon law. Has nothing to do with any constitutions. Keep that in mind. Canon law is foreign law. Vatican City is its own sovereign state. It's foreign to every other country. So you can't jump, which I call jumpers and betters. You can't jump from Constitution to canon law. It doesn't work. You can't jump from Articles of Confederation to canon law. Does not work unless it's adopted. It's still foreign law. So how can they uphold something that does not recognize the profession as explained in part 1 of this series? See, the Constitution, Articles of Confederation, they don't recognize titles, and they don't recognize, titles nobility or nobilities under titles. The private association has destroyed it, and therefore it is requested of the government of the United States of America to at least record the Constitution of the United States of America for the purpose of preserving it for those that wish to serve under it. That, my friends, that Constitution has been put into evidence. It's been transferred into evidence. And you go, how is it transferred, or why has it been transferred into evidence? Okay, because of the simple fact that that Constitution was written in such a way that you would never have a civil president of the United States of America. So that the 3-city-state empire could militarily occupy the 50 states of the Union perpetually. That's why it's put into evidence. So it wasn't hard for the lawyers to destroy it, was it?
No, and we should probably quickly revisit that. Serving under the Constitution, the people's names aren't on the Constitution. Why don't you quickly cover that real fast? I know it's slightly off topic, but
okay. If you haven't signed it, you're not a party to it. It's pretty much that simple. If you start calling, and that's what I call jumpers and betters, okay? Someone who signed the state constitution has vetted themselves or attached themselves to it. It's a big difference between the entity being recognized and, or let's just say the United States of America, the original 1781, that being recognized, and the individual being connected to that recognition. Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense to me.
A huge, huge difference. So they would say, yeah, oh yeah, we recognize the United States of America, that's no problem, but recognizing you as being a party to that entity, complete and huge difference, which has already been done in our case. Okay, we've already been vetted to being attached to that entity in that country. A jumper is someone who claims the Declaration of Independence, jumps over to the Constitution of the United States, then jumps over to today and hasn't been vetted or attached to any of them. Then turns around and claims to be, well, I'm a state citizen. Well, man, you have not vetted. You're jumping all over the place.
Sounds like,
Go ahead.
sounds a lot like those patriot groups.
Yeah, they do that quite a bit, and they come in and they start offering their what do you call it? Their priceless and benefit of their opinion on something they haven't been vetted to, connected to in any way, shape, or form. Not even a party to it.
Right. In other words, you're creating a formal relationship, but if you don't have a document, a contract. If you don't have people get a phone service, they sign a contract.
Right. They have been vetted as a customer of the phone company.
Right. So you get the benefits of whatever phone service you got, and the billing rate and the repairs to the phone or whatever, exactly. But if you don't have a formal relationship, I can't expect Verizon to come and fix, a phone that I've broken that is from some other manufacturer. It doesn't make any sense.
That's the first thing that they do when you call a phone company. They start vetting you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's your phone number? You give them a phone number and they go, oh, okay, you're one of ours. You're vetted with us now. You're not jumping.
Right. You're one of us.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
You're not jumping from Sprint over to Verizon. Or if you have that phone number and they say, well, that's a Sprint number, we can't deal with you. That's called vetting, folks. And they're calling you a jumper. You're jumping from Sprint to Verizon. Go away. Go call Sprint. That's their problem, not ours.
That would explain the resistance people get when they walk into court claiming constitutional rights.
Yes, they haven't been properly vetted. 2, any constitution. And that's what the judicial districts are for. And that's why they have been remapped and resurveyed, placed on public notice over at generalpostoffice.org. You can go take a look. And they're called they're one Supreme Court judicial districts that have been established now by the General Post Office. So on nefarious acts, let's jump back over to the private associations. Under private associations, the only thing that can actually violate law, because private membership associations are controlled by contract, that private membership associations are vulnerable in one area: nefarious acts committed within the association. Technically, the nefarious act has to be committed against one of its members. This is the reason why lawyers do not place lawyers in jail, and the individual has to be disbarred from before being charged with anything. This is a long, drawn-out process. So in order for state statutes to be charged against a lawyer, the lawyer has to be disbarred. Once they're disbarred, now they can be charged. Is that not the definition of a nobility under a title?
Yes, it is.
However, that would mean that the people are being accused and charged under its law within its state, not knowing that the private membership association would be a misrepresentation of its true character to the general public. Nefarious acts are considered human rights violations. One of the human rights violations that is most commonly witnessed is Article 21. Everyone has the right to take part in a government of his country directly or through freely chosen representatives. Lawyers are not freely chosen representatives and are not elected. The private membership association has lodged itself by and between the people and the state governments by making the people the enemy of the state and the state the enemy of the people. If anyone whistleblows against a lawyer, they are labeled a domestic terrorist. This legal framework ensures a steady flow of clients that can be represented for a fee that is not recognized by the state constitutions. That's huge. You have a private membership association, not elected, no freely chosen representatives. You're being forced on them. They're being forced on you. And that's what they're doing in a courtroom when they're forcing a lawyer on you. They're saying, oh, this guy's not elected. He's not freely chosen. And by the way, you have to go over through this prosecutor here. You can't talk to the state directly. Highly illegal, folks.
That's human trafficking.
Absolutely it is. It says everyone has the right of equal access to public service in this country. People have a very hard time receiving benefits from their own governments because it usually takes a lawyer to get those benefits approved. and turned down by Social Security, call us. We'll get those benefits that you deserve. Okay. The will of the people shall be the basis of the authority of government. This will shall be expressed in periodic and genuine elections, which shall be by universal and equal suffrage and shall be held by secret vote or by equivalent free voting procedures. Okay? Now, once again, the lawyers in office write the laws that are advantageous to their profession, and therefore free elections are impossible to obtain, further advancing their powers and privileges. The only forum that offers no immunity to private membership associations in existence is the National Tribunal. Article 8, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Everyone has the right to an effective remedy by a competent national tribunals for acts violating the fundamental rights granted to him by the Constitution or by law. That's the Constitution they've been vetted to. So they got to sign it. Take an oath and affirmation to it. Something. When the Human Rights Tribunal International was established, the first of its kind in 50 years in America, the American Bar Association scrambled to establish human rights commissions, etc., all over the country to give the appearance of defending human rights. And that's an absolute fact. We didn't hear one thing about human rights. We come up with a Human Rights Tribunal, ran that thing for 8 months, and all of a sudden, human rights tribunals and commissions popping up all over the place. The rules set up in those organizations are so limited in scope, it is impossible to qualify for its services. Further, each of those organizations were designated to segregate the races, again, meaning that many races are excluded from their services. I think we went to one county, only Latino people can go there.
Yeah, we were in touch with one out of D.C., and it was only for DC. Couldn't go beyond DC.
Yeah, they couldn't go beyond DC, but yet they could include it in 1864 as a state, but claim foreign immunity when it suits them, right?
Yeah, and you're right. The reality is it's all show, because if they were really taking human rights seriously, you'd see the posters and stuff in subways and along the highways, the billboards and things like that, because they'd be promoting it, and they're not.
And we can tell they're not because what? We see human rights violations every day, and they don't do a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not one thing. They just sit there. They look pretty in their uniforms and stuff, but they don't do anything. That's why the Human Rights Tribunal here is pretty much overwhelmed with people coming here. You wouldn't believe some of the stories we get. Unbelievable. It says the government of the United States of America is the only qualified government to regulate private membership associations and has the ability to stop these nefarious acts all around the country. It needs your support either by alliance or endorsement, or simply claiming residency or going forward to a nationality on the state level. Forming a real grand jury has been offered but ignored. I think we were talking about that a long time ago. Based on the history of these bar associations organized as private membership associations, to let these associations go unregulated is a breach of national security, and therefore to restore peace and tranquility of the people. Regulation must be accomplished to stabilize the country and avoid uprising by the people or another world war started by the bar associations, thereby repeating history. Hello, what's going on? Muslims are moving into Europe, causing all kinds of stuff, and they're moving into America, causing all kinds of crap here. There's your world war, guys. Who let them in? Who made the laws to let them in? Always go back to the laws that they're talking about. Who made them? Who's responsible? Who designed it? The United Nations was created to stop events like Nazi Germany. However, the Bar Association still go unregulated and therefore has failed in its mission in, thus far. The government of the United States of America is still willing to work with the United Nations to set up a regulatory system for these bar associations. However, it is expected that one will expected that one will be set up but regulated by the lawyers themselves, and the authority of the people will once again be ignored. That's number 3. Now we can go to number 4. Okay, statistics. According to the current population survey, 1.1 million attorneys were working in the United States in 2012. But the Labor Department's employment projections program places the figure at 759,800. Many would believe that there were more in existence. However, when broken down to the numbers, look under the section entitled Number of Active and Resident Lawyers per capita on the link above, and that will give people some perspective. I'm going to hit that link. In all legal relationships, the number 1 requirement in any document is to define the legal relationship so that the parties have a meeting of the minds. Okay, I'm going to go to the number of lawyers per capita by state. Of course, they have District of Columbia in the beginning, which is not a state, by the way. New York, population, okay, 19,795,000. Number of active lawyers, 172,630. Number of lawyers per 10,000 residents, that would be 87.2. I'll turn off those chimes there. Just as an example, 12,859,000, 63,211 per capita. That's 63,000 lawyers for 12 million people. 24,522. Okay, now the lawyers are connected to the Masons. How do we know that? Because I have a picture here, AL 5991, AD 1991, St. Lucie County Courthouse Edition. Has the Masonic symbol. This cornerstone laid by the most worshipful Grand Lodge of free and accepted Masons of Florida. St. Lucie, or it could be Lucie, County Courthouse. So, example 1, a husband and wife have a legal relationship. Basically, the husband married his ex-girlfriend and fiance when she became his wife and vice versa. I'll say that again. Your wife is your ex-girlfriend and ex-fiance. Make sense?
Yes.
So now the husband and wife relationship is defined, and each party knows their place in the relationship. However, the entering of the public into the marriage does not have any legal relationship defined within the marriage. And I'm going to show you how that happens. Any part of an agreement that is not clearly defined is considered null and void for vagueness, because it is impossible for a judge to determine if or when the public was injured in a divorce, because the legal relationship of the public in a marriage is not defined. The marriage parties read husband and wife, not husband-wife in public. Therefore, it is impossible for the public to claim a tort against the husband and wife in the case of divorce. Okay, now in the wording, they put what they call an habendum clause in the marriage ceremony. To have and to hold from this day forward till death do you part. Boom. With the power vested in me by the state of blank, okay? You're hereby pronounced man and wife, right? To have and to hold from this day forward till death do you part. That is called a habendum clause. It's a marriage that is issued with restrictions. When an officer of the state makes that statement, he has declared the law for the marriage. That gives the state jurisdiction over the marriage. I'm sure that part's going to be played over a couple times from people. They want to hear that over and over again. Okay, in the Constitution for the United States of America, it reads, no person shall be a representative who shall not have attained the age of 25 years and have been 7 years a citizen of the United States, and who shall not, when elected, be an inhabitant of that state in which he shall be chosen. Okay. So this particular part in this example is citizen of the United States. Today, people are called U.S. citizens. Notice there's no legal relationships defined between the U.S. citizen and the citizen of the United States. When no definition of a legal relationship exists by and between two entities, one is not in any way connected to the other. So where's the Constitution for the U.S. citizens? Y'all ever wondered that? What Constitution they're going under?
Yeah, I think they use the U.S. citizen and the citizen of interchangeably for confusion purposes.
Because U.S. is actually military. That's on their military lapel. I mean, you have the little pin on your dress greens. Okay, if you're in the Army, you have a little pin that says U.S. And they go, oh, well, that's short for United States. No, I don't think so. Completely different. Okay. The only way to connect the two entities would be to write, and been 7 years a citizen of the United States, also known as a U.S. citizen. They would have had to write that in. So which Constitution is a U.S. citizen connected to or under? What legal relationship does the U.S. citizen have with the 1789 Constitution? Where are the rights of the U.S. citizen to claim a document that does not recognize the U.S. citizen as existing in fact? Where is the bridge between the U.S. citizen and a citizen of the United States? Here's an example number 3. Where is the bridge of legal relationship defined by and between many terms that are used to describe people in different situations, and how do they all relate to each other? Define a definition of a resident, someone who lives in a place. What or where is the legal relationship defined by and between the words resident and place? There's not, because it's residence. It's completely different. What are the duties, rights, and responsibilities of the resident in a particular place? Is place defined? Where is the word resident in the Constitution for the United States? Does the Constitution for the United States of America recognize residents? I know our Articles of Confederation does. But there is no recognition there.
This is a good food for thought for everybody who has a driver's license from wherever state they're in, or any state document that says that to qualify for those documents, you need to be a resident of the state. And by being in the state for a continuous 6 months or something like that, you automatically become a resident. So if you were claiming to be a U.S. citizen at one point, American citizen, or whatever other status you thought you had, now, because of the credentials you hold, you are a resident. So now you have to think about, well, where is that defined, and where are your protections? And that's just food for thought.
Right. If you think you're a citizen of the state, well, I'm a citizen, I'm a voter, I'm a citizen of the state. Great. Go down and get a citizen's driver's license.
Right.
They don't have those. They only have resident driver's license. That's the weird part. All right. General information. If any legal relationship is not defined, then it is not a part of something that is claimed to be associated with it. There are almost 1 million lawyers, give or take a few. If there are in fact that many lawyers that are members of the American Bar Association, anyone would think that at least one would start defining or begin a practice in the field of legal relationships to dispel confusion among the people as a benefit to society, therefore giving the American Bar Association the claim of a benefit to society. See, I don't know where they benefit. Because associations that exist, they have to benefit society somehow, and they don't have it. Immigrants or immigration. Immigrants take an oath or affirmation to the Constitution for the United States of America, yet are called U.S. citizens. That is called bait and switch, especially if the Constitution that the immigrant is taking an oath or affirmation to does not recognize a U.S. citizen. That condition also opens the country to many charges of human trafficking, and therefore qualifies as a national security breach. Does this report to the people need to go into any more examples before they are convinced that there's a national security breach or that the American Bar Association is not doing what it was designed to do, and that the members of said association are doing everything else other than what they're supposed to be doing? The one and only purpose of a lawyer is to define legal relationships as a third-party neutral under an advisory position for the purpose of resolution and settlement under peaceful settlement of disputes. This practice of representation of a party is outside the scope of the term advisory in defining legal relationships, which violates neutrality, therefore removes the immunity of neutrality. Corruption is easily defined. When an elected representative changes the legal relationship of the people as it pertains to their government without the consent of the people through free and open elections. Corruption is defined when an elected representative changes the legal relationship of the people as it pertains to their government without the consent of the people through free and open elections. That is why Sharia law, Islam, and private membership association law violates the consent of the people through free and open elections. The human rights violations. The whole body is. People didn't elect lawyers. They thought they were electing, congressmen, senators, governors, things like that. Who says a private or an attorney general has to be a lawyer? Oh, I'm sorry. The lawyers did. So when their other elected officials all happen to be lawyers, get in trouble, the attorney general protects them. They all protect each other. Why was Trump turned down when he brought up a constitutional issue in one of their courts? Why was he turned down? Because he just fired an attorney general. They take care of their own. That was retribution. Illegal as hell, but retribution by the judges. Hey, if you're going to fire one of our attorney generals, we're going to close out your case, man. We don't care how constitutional it is. That's called revenge for going after one of their own. Sucks, doesn't it? They all stick together, folks. Tony, Stu, have anything else to say? Y'all been awful quiet today.
Yeah. I'm absorbing all the knowledge. Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, every time you intellectually go down this path, it's the construction of the human rights violations, the whole society. It's just staggering. It staggers the intellect. It's incredible. But we can change things.
That's 3 and 4 of an 8-part series. It gets worse.
Yeah. I didn't want to say that to people, but yeah, there's more layers to it.
Oh yeah, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse.
It was just a primer.
And that's how in trouble the country is when you guys are going to, the folks are going to barbecues and football games and basketball games and all this other fun stuff. When y'all are sitting there doing that, this is what happened to your country.
Right. There's lawyers that aren't doing that.
Yes. They're over there trying to find out how many more rights they can take and have become addicted to it. They become addicted to taking rights and gaining more power and more power. All right. I guess that ends the show for the day. I guess that's enough to absorb for people. And thank you for listening to the T Row Show and tuning in. We are getting more subscribers and we are getting more listens, and we do definitely appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in for, I don't know, I guess it's been about an hour. I wasn't timing it. So say goodbye, fellas.
See you next week.
Good afternoon. See you next week.